Welcome to Failure Upcycled. This is Dr. Vicki Stieha.
And this is Dr. Kimberly Henderson from Boise State University.
In this podcast, we'll be listening to Jocilyn and her story about failing a class.
Jocilyn's story inspires us to discuss that failure is not a character flaw.
Hello, Professor Henderson. My name is Jocilyn. My major is English Writing Emphasis BA, and I would definitely like to talk about my story about failure. Well, for a really, really long time, I have never failed a class, never failed any points or something like that. I mean, I kind of always tripped on the edge, but this one time in college, I actually did fail a class, which I did feel pretty ashamed and, shocked by it. But it came no shock because it was that one class that just, totally stole my interest and, I didn't feel so passionate about it. It was very confusing, and plus I didn't really have the best instructor. I couldn't really contact her either. Since I'm an English major, I wanted to become a writer and wanted to, get into all types of English classes. But I had to take that class in order to try other new electives and other English classes. And, of course, I failed. In the very end, it critically graded my journals and everything else, and I didn't do so well on my e-portfolio. So I was given the chance to retake it this semester, which was a really good thing. I knew what to expect. I knew what to, get things done. And I know I did so much better on my journals and portfolio, and had a much better instructor, and I'm really glad that I got to redeem myself from that failing class. So, yeah, that's my story.
From my understanding of what she said, that the difficulty didn't come from the course.
It came from her.
It came from her. She was struggling with the process of the course. She was struggling with understanding the course, because when she talks about taking the course a second time, she had all of that previous learning of that context. I mean, if nothing else, she knows how to run Blackboard better.
Right.
She said she knew how to turn things in. She knew what was missing in her e-portfolio. So it's as if she took all that feedback and experience from that first round and empowered herself with that information to be successful in the second time.
Yeah. I think that one point in the story, it's easy to hear her start focusing on what other people did and get distracted by that. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I struggle with that.
With blaming the instructor?
Blaming the instructor.
Yes.
It's not really useful in terms of regrouping from a failure. Blaming someone else is not really useful, is it?
No.
Not in this case.
No. But that's also not to say that, we don't have a part in that. I mean, educating is a relationship, right? Right. So I would advocate on her behalf just a little bit and say, things could have been structured a little bit better.
Right, and that's always the case.
Yeah, but pointing a finger, right, though, you point one finger and you've got three pointing right back at you, right? That old idiom is just one of those things that anytime you want to attribute fault or blame somebody else for your situation or circumstance, there's still a lot of personal control that's available.
One of the things that we see with some students is they experience failure and then they internalize shame.
Okay.
And they attach it to, I can't do it.
Oh, they make it at a personal value. And
they see something fixed within themselves that can't be changed, right? So, I just don't have it. I can't change the things that need to be changed in order for me to be successful. And luckily, in Jocilyn's case,
yes,
she was able to say, okay, my journals were being graded in a way that was different than I expected them to. I have to recalibrate my performance on that product.
Yes.
I have to think about how my portfolio goes together. I have to manage the expectations. So she did not see what she did as a fixed trait.
Yeah.
She was able to correctly identify, I didn't perform at the right level.
Yeah, she didn't say, I suck.
Right.
She said, I didn't do.
Right.
I didn't do well in my portfolio. She didn't anticipate the expectations on the discussions or the journal entries.
Yeah.
One of my favorite pieces of her story, though, is, we talk a lot in science about learning and relearning, and about how anything new that we learn is actually in many ways relearning, because we're just making new connections with old content. Mm-hmm. The emphasis is more on new connections and not necessarily new information, especially as you get deeper into your discipline and your content. But one of the things that I liked about her story is that how much wealth there was in that first run. That first go through, where she didn't really know how to manage the professor's expectations, and she didn't really have a grasp on how things were going to be graded, and she didn't really have a sense of how the e-portfolio was going to be looked at and what was going to be contributing greatly to her grade and things like that. And that new awareness, I'm sure, right, the second time around, obviously she felt exponentially more confident. And I can imagine that she took that lesson that she learned on that first fail and carried it forward to other classes, where she's like, I need to pay attention to rubrics and how an e-portfolio contributes to my grade. And I mean, that's all really valuable information.
And I think then it's a generative fail.
Okay, something came of it, yeah.
Right, and I think that's what we want. I think one of the things we're working toward is making sure that failure is not a negative.
Yeah.
It's not simply bad. It's generative.
And the point you were trying to make, I think, is that a failure is an event. It's not a characteristic.
Yes. Yeah.
And
that's a nice, concise thank you. I appreciate that.
It's a good way to sort of think about it, right? This is something I did, but it's not who I am.
Right.
It's not the sum total of me.
Yeah. And if we can take it, put it outside of ourselves, we can examine it for what it is and figure out how do we navigate it next time.
Yeah, because there will be a next time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Cool.
She's moving on.
Wait, so are we.
Yes.
Thanks.